My pals over at the Dungeon Run just started a new season of their awesome live play D&D campaign, and they asked me to illustrate the world map for their new game. So I thought it would be fun to bring you along on the process of collaborating on a world map and hopefully inspire you to create your own. So Jared and Ron, the two co-DMs of this campaign, approached me with a list of all of the locations and a sketch, a very loose sketch of the map. And this is perfect because it's exactly how I start making my own maps. You know, I always start with a loose drawing and just enough of a plan to figure out what type of terrain goes where. Typically, my next step would be to make a key. I would basically figure out how I was going to illustrate each individual element. You know, like trees would be drawn like this, mountains like that, rivers like this, etc., etc. But because I had already drawn the map for the first season of the Dungeon Run, I already had a style to go by and basically had already figured out how all the trees and mountains and rivers and everything was going to look for this map. So I jumped right into labeling the map and making a sketch. And because this is a commission piece, I did send them a looser version of the map so they could send comments and make changes. And you can kind of see that as the lighter layer behind these outlines. And speaking of outlines, that is how I always start these maps. I get that nice thick outer border that contains the whole map. Lay that down first. So yeah, once the labels are in, the outer border and the rivers and lakes have been drawn, then it's time to jump into filling in all of these details. Like I said, Jared and Ron had a big list that described each area, so I just followed that, illustrating the cities and towns, the mountains and forests, all the areas. And this is obviously the most time-consuming part of the map, but it's also my favorite part. As you can see, drawing stuff like these mountains is fairly simple. They're just jagged triangle shapes with a dividing line down the middle, and then I'm adding in hatching texture to one side to give the mountains a little bit of extra depth. Just super simple, uniform diagonal lines. The grass areas are just 3 little lines, and forests are just triangles with some more of those diagonal texture lines. I'm not being ultra precise with my drawing either. I think maps look cooler when you can tell they're hand drawn, and it feels more like they were created inside the fantasy world that this map comes from, when each little element is drawn by hand and not just copied over and over. So yeah, my point is, if you take the time to figure out how to draw each individual little element and then fill up the sheet of paper with a bunch of those simple little drawings, you'll end up with a super cool, complex map. Now, I know I talk about this stuff all the time, but really I want to encourage you to draw your own maps. It's fun and it's easy. It just takes a little bit of planning and some time. Now, I'm illustrating this map using Photoshop because I need to be able to make changes easily. We were renaming places up until the very end, and I wanted to be able to scale the map so they can use it for all kinds of merch if they want to go that route with it. But I want to be super clear. You don't have to have fancy computer equipment to draw a fun map. It's just as easy to do with pencil and pen and paper. It's just a little bit more difficult to make changes, that's all. And you know what? If you're drawing with pen and paper, you'll have a nice original piece at the end. And that's something I kind of miss, you know, switching over to drawing digitally. Anyway, let's talk about the Dungeon Run. It's a live play D&D show with a super fun cast. All the characters are really awesome, and it's an extremely entertaining group. Jared and Ron have been awesome dungeon masters so far. The first season was 115 episodes, and if that sounds like an intimidating place to start, the good news is that the new season just started, and as of this recording, there are only 2 episodes in. If you're a fan of Critical Role or other live play games or podcasts, you should definitely check it out. I'll have a link down in the description so you can check out their channel. You know, it's really rewarding bringing other people's vision to life in the form of a map, getting to help create a world that these players are going to be exploring for hours and hours is just, it's super cool. And this is only half of the map, just the North Island of Tass. There's a whole other South Island that they haven't shown yet. It's got tons of fun elements like a big desert. There's this whole cursed area and a bunch of magical cities. Maybe I'll get to show that off further down the line once they've reached that island in the story. I guess I need to say, because I always get these kind of questions, but unfortunately I don't have time for personal commissions. If you're looking for a map for a book or a show, hit me up. But if you want to make a map for your own home game, I really want to encourage you to try making it yourself. I promise nothing I'm drawing on this map is super complicated. You can even mute my rambling voice here and slow down the YouTube video to half or 1/4 speed and see exactly how I'm drawing each of these little elements. Or you can always check out some of my other videos that I've made about map making and really just give it a try. You'll have fun bringing your own world to life, and your players will be crazy impressed with you if you throw down a map on the table and show them all the cool places that they're gonna get to explore. Okay, so the last step to making this map was to add some color, and I'll be totally honest and say that I messed around with all sorts of Photoshop shenanigans to get this thing looking how I wanted. It ended up being way more complicated than it needed to be. You know, blending layers and transparencies and texture files. And I'm not going to show you the whole process because I really don't recommend coloring stuff this way. Maybe down the line I'll do a simpler how to color maps in Photoshop tutorial. But for now, let's just check out the final piece and how it all came together. Go check out the dungeon run and watch them explore this island of Tass. I'm super proud of this map, and I really hope they get a lot of use out of it on the show. If you'd like to support this channel, I have a Patreon where every month I write and illustrate system-neutral tabletop role-playing game adventures, but I also make zine versions that I mail out as well. This month's zine is all about exploring and creating dark and dangerous dungeons. Alright, let me know what you think of the task map down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!